Hey guys, Horror Lorekeeper here. Today we're tackling the beating heart of the franchise's horror. Not one character, but a whole household that turns love into a labyrinth. The disturbing psychology of the Afton family in FNAF. We're going to cover how this family looks across their human and animatronic forms, how they behave when we encounter them in games and tapes, the story that runs from cozy suburban hallways to underground labs, and finally to a building designed to burn, and the major theories that explain why this family keeps recreating the same nightmare. We'll do appearance, behavior, story, and theories. So sit back, relax, and let's dive back into the world of FNAF. Why did William Afton become a serial killer in the first place? Not just he's evil LOL. We're going to look at him like an FBI profiler would. We'll talk about his narcissistic streak and how that ties into the remnant immortality stuff, the family annihilator angle, and what killing Elizabeth says about him, his obsession with control, and why children were the perfect victims for that, the Springlock incident as a possible trauma accelerator, and we'll even compare him to real-world killers like BTK. Guys who looked normal, had families, but still hunted. We'll pull from the FNAF novels, the security logbook hints, and the Pizzeria Simulator style confession tapes to build it out. So sit back, relax, and let's dive back into the world of FNAF. First, we need to put Afton in the right corner of the FNAF universe. William isn't just a random murderer. He's one of the founders' tech brains behind the restaurants, depending on which continuity you follow. The novels make him a partner to Henry. The games treat him as the guy behind the suits, the experiments, the let's make a kid's place with murderable costumes idea. That means his killings are inside the business, not outside it. We're not dealing with a slasher breaking into a pizzeria. We're dealing with the person who built the pizzeria and then used it as a hunting ground. That's important psychologically because it tells us he wanted proximity to victims and infrastructure he could control. Think of the classic Freddy's layout: party rooms, a back hallway to parts and service, storage where the older suits are kept. Those quiet staff-only areas are exactly where someone like Afton would lure kids. Clean public front, dark industrial back. Before we talk psychology, let's actually see him in the FNAF way. Afton has two visual modes across FNAF media: the human, business-like father, inventor, and the shadowy purple guy representation. Human Afton reads as neat, controlled, almost boring. Collared shirt, maybe a tie, someone you'd ignore at a company picnic. Expressionless, but unsettling. Then we have the purple, lanky, simplified version from the minigames. A distorted, inhuman shape that still moves with purpose. We can see that the two designs are telling the same story. A man who looks normal, but whose inner self is predatory. No wild hair. No, I'm a villain cape. Just a dad, an engineer, who happens to murder kids. That normalcy is the horror flavor. So when do we encounter him? Most of the time in the games, we meet Afton indirectly. In retro mini-games, in tapes, in notes, in old blueprints. That's actually super realistic to serial killer psychology. Real killers who stay free for years don't pop out and monologue. They leave patterns, trophies, cover-ups. In Pizzeria Simulator style material, he's talking about being lured back and being reminded of his sins. In the Silver Eyes trilogy, we see more of him as a father whose children orbit around tragedy. He's the guy always just off frame. That creates a consistent behavioral profile. He likes to operate from behind systems. He doesn't chase in the open. He builds animatronics that do it. He builds springlock suits to hide in. He uses the restaurant itself as the trap. That's a control-driven offender. Alright, lore tie-in time. Afton's killings are always tied to Fazbear Tech and later to Remnant, that solely afterlifey substance he wants to extract. If we look at that through a psychological lens, it looks a lot like narcissistic grandiosity. It has been theorized, and the novels pretty much push this, that Afton wasn't content with just killing. He wanted to conquer death through what he learned from killing. That's not a crime of passion, that's a god complex. I can take life, I can use life, I can live forever using other people's souls. That's a classic narcissistic personality pattern, believing other people are resources to be harvested for your own legacy. The kids weren't people, they were ingredients. Let's start unpacking the angles one by one. 1. Narcissistic personality disorder indicators. The God complex. Afton's whole remnant immortality arc screams, I am more important than the rules of life. Narcissistic offenders often feel entitled to experiences normal people don't get. In his case, that's literal immortality. The fact that he keeps coming back, Springtrap, Scrap Trap, glitch-like echoes mirrors a narcissist's refusal to accept limits. The restaurant can burn, Henry can trap him, but Afton believes he deserves to continue. He experiments on possessed animatronics not just to see if it works, but to prove he's right. That's why the experiments are cruel. He's testing kids' souls like they're lab rats. A humble person doesn't do that. A person who thinks he's above everyone does. 2. The Family Annihilator Profile. How Elizabeth fits. One of the darkest pieces across the extended FNAF material is that Afton's own daughter, Elizabeth, dies because she's drawn to one of his creations, Circus Baby, and he either didn't stop it or he knowingly put her in danger by building something lethal. In real-world profiling, there's a type of offender who destroys or endangers their own family because the family exists inside their control bubble. They're not seen as separate people. Afton letting Elizabeth die is that same mindset. His work and his ego outrank his child's safety. That is monstrous. But it's also psychologically consistent. He wanted to own everything in his orbit, and later, when Elizabeth's spirit is inside Baby and he still uses that creation, it's like he's preserving his family in these awful forms. Family annihilators often want to decide the fate of the family themselves. Afton literally does that. He wanted to choose what his family became, even if what they became was trapped in animatronics. 3. Control obsession. Why children? Why does he pick kids? FNAF gives a lore reason. Kids' souls are stronger, they possess better, they're tied to the place, but psychologically, kids are the perfect victims for someone obsessed with control. Children trust adults. Children are easier to lure to the back room. Children are less believed when they say something's wrong. That power imbalance is the whole point. People like BTK maintained a normal family while targeting vulnerable victims. 2 separate lives. Afton does the exact FNAF version. He's dad and engineer on one side, nighttime predator on the other. In FBI terms, he's the organized type. Planning, choosing, hiding bodies inside suits. He's not raging randomly. He's creating a world where he has absolute power over weaker beings. That's why the restaurants keep getting rebuilt. He wants more scenarios where he's the god of the environment. 4. The Springlock incident as trauma catalyst. Now let's talk about the Springlock failure. The one image everyone remembers. Afton hiding inside the suit, the locks fail, and he's crushed, bled, trapped, eventually becoming Springtrap. We can read that purely as cosmic justice, or we can read it as a moment of extreme pain that locks in his worst traits. Trauma can do that. If he already had narcissistic and controlling tendencies, the experience of being mutilated and still alive could have convinced him even more that he needed remnant immortality, revenge. Look what the world did to me. I'm justified in doing anything. Physical pain as a radicalizer. After that, he isn't just a killer, he's a killer with a grudge and a non-human body. You can imagine his empathy, which was already low, just getting scorched away in that suit. Now, let's do the unique hook, comparing him to someone like Dennis Rader, BTK, and to FBI profiling frameworks. BTK was infamous for being totally normal looking, family, church, jobs. Meanwhile, he was binding, torturing, killing. He maintained a social mask. Afton does exactly that in FNAF form. He co-runs a kids brand. He appears as a father. He's trusted around children. That's the mask. Behind it, he's building killing machines. The FBI talks about compartmentalization in organized offenders. The ability to separate the public self from the predatory self. Afton is basically the Fazbear version of that. Also, BTK liked to taunt and stay involved with the investigation. Afton stays involved with the restaurant, with the animatronics, with the place of his crimes. He can't let it go. That's classic serial killer narcissism. My work is so good I want to see how people react to it. If we walk his story chronologically, it looks like this. Early phase, talented engineer, business partner, possibly jealous of Henry or of the attention the characters get. Normal facade, curiosity phase, realizes there's something supernatural about emotion, plus death. Plus animatronics, this is where the Silver Eyes trilogy vibes come in. Starts experimenting, operational killer phase, uses his access to lure kids, hides bodies in suits, keeps working at the same place. This is where the pizzeria simulator tapes feel like an echo, someone trying to contain what he created. Family casualty phase, his daughter dies because of his creations. Instead of repenting, he folds that into the obsession. This is where he looks like a twisted family annihilator. He'd rather have a dead, controllable daughter than a living, disobedient one. Trauma entombment phase, Springlock failure, pain. Isolation, hatred, undead persistence phase, spring trap, scrap trap, pure ego, no mask left. At this point, he's what happens when the psychology you started with never got challenged. So what does this all mean for Afton's psychology? The most likely theory is, Afton's killings were never just about killing. They were about confirming his superiority. He wanted to prove he could beat death, beat the rules of Fazbear, beat even his own family's autonomy. That aligns with narcissistic personality disorder traits, grandiose sense of self, lack of empathy, exploitative relationships, preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success or power. In this case, immortality through Remnant. A second fan favorite reading is that Afton is what happens when a real-world serial killer profile gets dropped into a universe where the supernatural is real. A real killer like BTK dropped into FNAF would 100% use the animatronics, the access to kids, the cover of a family-friendly brand. The difference is that in FNAF, the victims get to bite back. The pizzeria simulator tapes and the logbook hints are basically the world trying to document and contain a killer who won't stop. Exactly what FBI profilers try to do. We should separate what's fairly supported by FNAF material from what we're inferring. Supported, Afton killed multiple children tied to Fazbear locations. He had at least one child, Elizabeth, who died because of his creations. He pursued or benefited from remnant immortality experiments. He ended up trapped in a springlock suit and persisted. Inferred, he had narcissistic traits that made him see people as tools. He fit an organized, control-focused offender style. The springlock trauma hardened him instead of breaking him. His treatment of family maps to family annihilator logic more than to oops, accident. And that's what makes him such an effective FNAF villain. He's not scary just because he keeps coming back. He's scary because his psychology explains why the evil keeps repeating. If you create a man who thinks he deserves to live forever and everyone else is raw material, of course the pizzeria keeps reopening. Of course the souls stay trapped. Of course animatronics keep getting possessed. The system is doing exactly what its creator wanted. Michael Afton. We're going to treat this like a full character psych profile. Survivor's guilt from the bite of 83. Why he keeps chasing his father's nightmare across locations. What that "I'm going to come find you" speech actually means. How literally getting scooped and walking around undead would change a person. And we're gonna wrap it all in a fun framework. Michael Afton as the hero's journey through trauma, like Joseph Campbell, but with more animatronics and body horror. We'll pull from sister location cutscenes, the FNAF 6 ending implications, and those survival logbook identity theories. So sit back, relax, and let's dive back into the world of FNAF. First, let's park Michael in the right corner of the universe. Michael is the Afton kid who lived. In the usual reading, he's the older brother who bullied his little brother with the foxy mask, the one whose prank ends in the bite of 83. He survives that childhood, grows up in the shadow of a murderous father, and later is sent underground in sister location to find someone, most likely Elizabeth, for William. Then, by the time we get to the events that line up with Pizzeria Simulator or FNAF 6, he's the one doing the cleanup, the one who says, "I did what you asked, I found her, I put her back together, I'm going to come find you." That's his era. Post-childhood tragedy, adult atonement. The environments tied to him are always the sadder, more industrial spaces. Not the kid party rooms, but the basements, private rental service, scooping room, burned out pizzeria, places where the mask is off and we can see the machinery. Before we get into the psychology, let's see Michael the way the games show him. FNAF almost never gives him a hero shot. He's glimpsed in old monitors, described in logs, or in sister location's ending, he's literally a walking corpse. Purple, leaking, eyes sunken, but still upright. We can see lanky and humanoid, clothes that used to fit but now hang, skin darkened and rotting from the scooping. Expressionless but unsettling. This isn't a glamorous protagonist. This is a guy whose body is proof of what he's been through. Even before that, in the implied childhood scenes, we notice he's the bigger kid, the one other kid probably followed, the one who thought the Foxy scare was funny. Everything about him says, once careless, now burdened. So when do we encounter him? We encounter Michael right after damage. In sister location, we meet him at the point where he's already on a mission. He's been told to go down there. That tells us he's obedient to the Afton family agenda even after seeing what it did to them. That's classic codependency with an abusive parent. I know you're bad, but I still want to make it right for you. And if we line this up with the logbook theories, we keep bumping into a voice that sounds regretful, trying to piece together who he is, who the crying child was, and what his role was. So Michael shows up whenever the FNAF story needs someone to walk into hell on purpose. That's his behavior pattern. Alright, let's start hitting the psychological angles. Survivor's guilt, the bite of 83. If we follow the popular interpretation that Michael was the older brother who tormented the crying child and that his prank directly led to his brother's death, then his entire adult arc is colored by I lived, he didn't, and it was my fault. Survivor's guilt isn't just sadness, it's a drive to repair what can't be repaired. That's exactly what we see in Sister Location. He goes in to find his sister. That's a replacement action. I couldn't save him, I will save her. We can see this in his tone in the ending monologue. Calm, resigned, almost accepting of death. People with survivor's guilt often unconsciously put themselves in risky situations because they feel they owe a life. Michael crawling into underground baby circus death tubes? That's him cashing the check. Codependency with an abusive father. Why does he keep following William's trail? Think about it. This is the son of the literal child murderer of the franchise. He knows by the time of Sister Location that his family is wrecked because of his father, and yet he still does what he's told. That's not stupidity, that's codependency. Growing up in a family where the father is controlling and violent, and in this case homicidal, kids sometimes adopt the role of the fixer. If I do what dad wants, maybe things won't get worse. Michael going to Sister Location is him doing dad's unfinished business. Michael later participating in the lure all the animatronics and burn them phase lines. Up with him finally flipping the script and doing the same cleanup, but no longer for dad, for everyone else. Identity crisis, the I'm going to come find you speech. This line from Sister Location's ending is so interesting because we can't tell if it's a threat or a promise. I'm going to come find you. Is that Michael saying, I'm coming for you, father, to end this? Or is it, you used me, but I still want to reach you? That's the identity crisis. Michael doesn't fully know whether he's the villain's son, the villain's tool, or the hero of the story. Kids of abusive parents deal with this a lot. Am I like him? FNAF makes it literal. He even becomes purple, like his dad's minigame sprite. That visual parallel is the game saying he fears he's becoming what William was. The survival logbook identity debates. Who's writing? Who's being addressed? All circle this question of self. Is Michael the crying child? Is he the older brother? Is he someone trying to reach the dead sibling? That confusion is diegetic. The character himself is trying to pin down who he is. Post-traumatic growth, the scooping. This is one of the coolest parts of Michael's arc. In Sister Location, he's literally scooped. His insides removed. His body used as a skin suit for Ennard. Then he's left to rot. And he keeps going. Most horror characters die there. Michael doesn't. He acknowledges it. I put her back together. I'm going to come find you. The trauma doesn't break him. It clarifies him. That's textbook post-traumatic growth. When the worst thing that happens to you actually solidifies your purpose. After the scooping, Michael stops being dad's errand boy and becomes the series' quiet protagonist. He walks around undead because he has something left to do. The body horror becomes a symbol. I can't go back to being normal, so I'll go forward and finish the job. The hero's journey through trauma. If we drop Joseph Campbell's monomyth over Michael's arc, it fits scarily well. Ordinary world kid in the Afton house, bratty older brother, family tied to the pizzeria, call to adventure. The family is shattered by deaths. Crying child, Elizabeth, and Michael realizes something is terribly wrong. Refusal of the call, implied period where he's just living, maybe ashamed, maybe staying away. Meeting the mentor. In this twisted version, the mentor is actually William giving him instructions. Go to this location, find her. It's an evil mentor. But it still kicks off the journey. Crossing the threshold, descending into Sister Location's underground facility, literal underworld imagery. Tests, allies, enemies, dealing with baby, funtime animatronics, being tricked, being scooped, the classic belly of the whale, approach to the inmost cave, realizing his family's souls, essences, remnants are scattered and he's the only one still walking around to do anything about it. Ordeal, the scooping, death but not death, reward, seizing the sword, knowledge and purpose. He now knows what his father did and how to end it. The road back. This is the phase that lines up with him being present for the Fazbear Fire, FNAF 6 stuff. luring, burning, cleansing, resurrection, literally, because he already died, but also thematically, he becomes the Avenger, not the bully. Return with the elixir. His elixir is closure. For the kids, for Elizabeth, for the crying child, and maybe even for himself. It's a heroic structure, but it's soaked in guilt. He's not a farm boy becoming a Jedi, he's a bully becoming a redeemer. Before we move on, let's connect this to the wider FNAF story pillars. Michael's arc is important because it's the human counterpoint to William's monstrous persistence. William refuses to die because he's selfish. Michael refuses to die because he feels responsible. Same outcome, undead guy walking around, totally opposite psychology. This suggests the FNAF universe isn't just about evil clinging on, it's about atonement clinging on. A lot of fans read the FNAF 6 finale, all of them burning together, as Henry making space for these haunted souls to rest. Michael being there means he chose to go down with them. That's not villain energy, that's penitent energy. So what does this all mean for Michael Afton? The likeliest reading is, Michael is a long-haul trauma survivor trying to balance revenge and redemption. He wants to stop his father, revenge. He wants to make up for his brother, redemption. He lets himself be used by Anard. He lets himself rot. He keeps investigating Fazbear locations because he believes he should suffer if it means other people stop suffering. That's survivor's guilt at work. An alternative fan reading, built off some logbook theories, is that Michael's identity is so fractured. Older brother versus crying child versus narrator. Because the series wants to show how trauma scrambles memory. Kids in abusive homes sometimes misremember who caused what, or they blur roles to cope. The games might be mimicking that. Michael is trying to remember exactly what happened in that house, and until he keeps digging up Fazbear's past. Let's separate what's supported from what we're inferring. Supported by sister location cutscenes. Michael was sent, was scooped, survived, and pledged to come find someone, likely William. Supported by FNAF 6 ending interpretation, Michael is present for the burns, cleansing, choosing sacrifice. Supported by survival logbook debates, there's an Afton kid voice working through identity and guilt. Inferred, Michael is the older brother from the bite of '83. His actions are driven by survivor's guilt. His pursuit of William is codependent cleanup. It fits, but it's not spelled out in a single line of canon, and that's what makes Michael such a compelling FNAF character. He's not just the son of the killer, he's the counterweight to the killer. William is, I can do whatever I want. Michael is, I will fix whatever you did. One destroys family, one tries to rebuild it, one experiments with Remnant to live forever, one walks around dead to put things to rest. Michael Afton's twisted relationship with William Afton. We're going to walk through what these two look like across their forms, how they behave when the story forces them into the same room, the timeline that welds son to father from the house era to the final burn, and the biggest theories about whether Michael's crusade is loyalty, revenge, or something in between. We'll hit appearance, behavior, story, and theories. So sit back, relax, and let's dive back into the world of FNAF. First, let's put this in the right corner of the universe. This relationship lives across three main zones: the Afton home in the Bite era memories, the sister location underground facility where orders become obedience and obedience becomes a trap, and the pizzeria simulator site that's secretly a crematorium for ghosts. If we were to tour it, the house is cramped hallways and a bedroom door that never quite shuts. Sister location is an elevator that exhales cold air, a private room humming with false comfort, and a scooping room that looks like an operating theater built by a carnival. Pizzeria simulator is cheerful vinyl floors on top and, below, salvage chairs bolted to concrete, vents that breathe, sprinklers that won't save anyone. That's the geography of a father and son who only speak clearly when the lights are off. Before the psychology, let's see them the way the games show them. Michael appears in two bodies: the older brother silhouette, lanky and humanoid, foxy mask dangling, laughter that curdles, and the undead penitent from Sister Location's ending, skin darkened and purpling, eyes sunken, clothes hanging wrong on a hollowed frame, expressionless but unsettling. He looks like a person who kept going after the story said stop. William, by contrast, has three faces. There's the businesslike dad inventor, neat and forgettable. There's the purple guy sprite, elongated, simplified, a stick figure with intent. And there's Springtrap scrap Scrap Trap, scorched, torn, human rot braided into a suit, lanky and inhuman, mangled and nightmarish, a mouth that's always slightly open like it's about to lie again. When we walk these models in our heads, we notice a visual rhyme. Father and son both end up purple, both end up wrong. But one is purple because he chose atrocity, and the other is purple because he chose to carry it. Function and behavior. When do we encounter the relationship itself? In FNAF terms, it triggers whenever the plot asks, who cleans up Afton's mess? Early on, the dynamic is classic abusive family logic. William issues an order, the son follows. In sister location, Michael descends on his father's say-so, go find your sister, and the facility's procedures turn obedience into a death sentence. Later, in Pizzeria Simulator, the dynamic flips. Michael moves on his mission to help Henry lure William and the haunted suits into the fire. William still threatens through systems, animatronics, tapes, the spring lock suit, but Michael threatens back by becoming the person who will voluntarily stand in the blast radius until the screaming stops. Both men have phases, like animatronics ramping up from basic to late game. Michael's phase is basic, the bully brother, careless, mocking, using fear for a laugh. Mid, the obedient son, takes orders, believes fixing dad's problem will heal the family. Late, the undead penitent, scooped, purple, purposeful, no longer dad's tool, now the custodian of everyone else's peace. William's phases, basic human killer behind the mascot mask. Organized, calculating, charming enough to be ignored. Mid, experimenter with remnant and possession, a god complex in a lab coat. Late, springtrap, scrap trap, a corpse with persistence. If he can't control the living world, he'll infest the ruins. Lore connection time. This relationship threads through the pillars, missing children, possession, remnant, old locations reused, and the abuse cycle. The most accepted reading puts Michael at the Bite era scene as the older brother whose prank becomes catastrophe. From there, he grows up orbiting William, the man who teaches love as obedience and secrets as safety. It has been theorized that the security logbook style notes are Michael trying to untangle that childhood. Who am I? Who died because of me? What do I owe? The canon is deliberately foggy, but the pattern is not. William creates the problem. Michael becomes the person who can't stop cleaning it. Let's walk the story like a narrated playthrough. Set up to final confrontation. The house and the rule book no one reads. We start with a home that looks normal until you listen. We can hear the TV, a birthday jingle drifting down the hall, a door's rubber seal pressed thin by small hands. We can see the foxy mask, the wheedling older brother, the child who cries because something is wrong with the fun place dad built. William hovers like gravity, the center you can't see but always feel. In this ordinary world, Michael learns two lessons. Fear is funny, and dad's rules are absolute. The first betrayal. Elizabeth dies because of Baby, an animatronic designed by Afton's shop. Whether William warned her away as a father or as a scientist, the result is the same. The machine eats his daughter, and the family is a tomb. Michael's role shifts from agent of mischief to agent of repair. If the popular reading is right, Survivor's guilt colonizes his head. He can't bring his brother back. Maybe he can find his sister. He hears dad's order and chooses to believe it's a way to make things right. Crossing the threshold, sister location's elevator. With all of that out of the way, Michael descends. The facility is William's worldview etched in stainless steel. Everything compartmentalized, everything procedural, everything smiling while it hurts you. Baby speaks like a caretaker because that's how control sounded at home. Do as I say, I will keep you safe. Michael obeys. He does the tasks. The room's open. The scooping room is the punchline. Obedience was the ritual. William's ecosystem consumes another Afton and calls it maintenance, or deal. The scooping and the speech. Ennard wears Michael like a stolen suit and leaves him to rot. He gets up anyway. This is the split screen moment where the relationship curdles into a vow. Michael's ending monologue, I put her back together. I'm going to come find you, isn't just a threat, it's a diagnosis. He finally sees what William is and what he himself has become. Purple like his father, but pointed in the opposite direction. The road back, hunting the past. From here, Michael follows the Fazbear Trail the way a player follows audio cues. Old sights, old mascots, old mistakes. He becomes the animatronic the brand can't shake, the human that returns every night. When Pizzeria Simulator sets the trap, Michael takes the job that isn't a job. He sits in the cheerful office and listens to the salvage tapes because he understands them on a level we never will. Every hiss and flutter is a family sound. Final confrontation, the burn. Henry's speech is parental in the way William never was. Firm, protective, final. It names William for what he is, it names the children for who they were, and it names the building for what it will be, a furnace. Michael's place in that scene is the hardest line in his story. He stays. He accepts a fate that rhymes with his father's, death in fire, but for the opposite reason. Where William burns because he refused to let go, Michael burns because he finally does. Before we move on, mini profiles of the encounters that define the bond: appearance, role, threat. William, human, tidy, blank, ordinary, and predatory. Role, father, boss, designer of rooms where kids disappear. Threat, social camouflage. Issues orders that sound like help. Springtrap, mangled and nightmarish, flesh stitched to suit. Role, the persistence of his will, a walking, you can't get rid of me. Threat, proximity. Every room he enters becomes the old back room, Michael, pre-sister location. Lanky teen, smirking and insecure. Role, schoolyard tyrant in a house shaped by a bigger tyrant. Threat, thoughtlessness. Michael, post-scooping. Expressionless but unsettling, purple and purposeful. Role, custodian of the dead, the last adult in the room. Threat, to William, inevitability. So what's the psychology under all this? Trauma, bond, codependency. Michael keeps doing William's errands because that's how he learned love works. Do what dad wants to stop the house from getting worse. In abusive families, a child often becomes the fixer, managing crises to keep the peace. Sister location is the purest form of this. Michael trusts the system because the system wears his father's voice. Identification and inversion both end up purple, both end up trapped in machines. But where William identifies with the predator and doubles down, Michael inverts it. He accepts the monstrous body and weaponizes it against the source of the horror. Same shape, opposite vector. Atonement versus grandiosity. William's side of the bond is narcissistic grandiosity. He treats people as parts and tries to outwit death with remnant and suits. Michael's side is atonement. He treats his own life as a resource to buy other people peace. One says, I deserve to live forever. The other says, I don't deserve to stop until this is over. Intergenerational infection. It has been theorized, and the logbook vibes support it, that Michael's memory and identity are fractured. He's not sure which boy he is in those old minigame rooms. That's trauma. William's sins don't just haunt animatronics, they haunt the way his son understands himself. The relationship is the virus. The burn is the cure. This brings us to the final and perhaps most important part. So what does this all mean for Michael Afton's twisted relationship with William? Likeliest reading. Michael is the franchise's living penance, and William is the inexhaustible offense. Their relationship is not a conversation, it's a closed system where one creates horror and the other absorbs it until the machine breaks. Michael's "I'm going to come find you" is both a son's last message and a hunter's promise. He isn't trying to win his father back. He's trying to find the man behind every ruin and turn the light off. Alternative fan reading. Michael never fully escapes William's frame. He's still playing the role William scripted, the useful son who goes where he's told. In this view, even the final burn is a play written by other men, Henry and William, and Michael is just the best actor. He's a tragic instrument, not a free agent. Admirable, but still trapped in his father's narrative until the building collapses. Let's separate what's on firmer ground from what we infer. Supported by sister location. Michael is sent underground, manipulated by baby Ennard, scooped, and survives to deliver a direct address promising to come find someone, overwhelmingly read as William. Supported by Pizzeria Simulator, Michael participates in a designed gather and burn ritual with Henry's narration condemning William and freeing the trapped souls. Michael is not shown escaping, strongly suggested by series tone logbook debates. Michael is working through guilt and identity tied to the house tragedies. Inferred, Michael was the Bite-era older brother. The relationship is defined by a trauma bond that only breaks in fire. Michael's late game actions are entirely self-directed revenge atonement rather than lingering obedience, and that's the awful poetry of it. William builds hell and hides inside it. Michael learns the layout and burns it down. William refuses to die because he can't imagine a world without himself. Michael refuses to rest because he can't imagine a world where those kids don't get a last word. same color, same corridors, opposite hearts. Alright, that's our breakdown of Michael Afton's twisted relationship with William Afton. The appearances that mirror like a curse, the behaviors that activate when the lights cut out, the playthrough from house to elevator to fire, and the theories that explain why one man keeps making monsters and the other keeps walking into their mouth. We're talking about the disturbing psychology of Elizabeth Afton and her obsession. We'll break down what she looks like across her forms, how she behaves and threatens the player, the story beats from child to circus baby to scrap baby, and the biggest theories on what drives her. Daddy's approval, power, or something even colder. We'll cover appearance, behavior, story, and theories. So sit back, relax, and let's dive back into the world of FNAF. First, context. Elizabeth lives in the sister location corner of the universe and then returns for Pizzeria Simulator. Picture the place she haunts, not a birthday dining room, but an industrial facility, an elevator descending into humming corridors, a private room that pretends to be safe, and a scooping room that looks like a clinic from a nightmare. Later, in Pizzeria Simulator, it's a modest daytime pizzeria above a salvager's dungeon. Bolted chairs, amplifier hum, vents that breathe. Both spaces feel the same, clinical and carnival. A kid's dream stapled to a maintenance lab. That's Elizabeth's headspace made architecture. Before we talk motives, we need to see her. As a child, Elizabeth is easy to imagine. Small, excited, a bow in her hair. We can see a bright dress, little shoes tapping on linoleum. Cherubic and impatient. Then we meet what she becomes. Circus Baby. Baby is glossy and doll-like. White and red plating, bright pigtails, a party dress silhouette. But look closer. We notice the segmented faceplates, the two wide eyes, the tiny mouth slits that are somehow worse than a grin. Her body is round and inviting, playful and predatory at once, and she carries props like a microphone and a little ice cream dispenser. The lure. When she opens, the charm collapses. Inside is a tangle of pistons and a grabbing mechanism that doesn't look like it was made for hugs. Later, as Scrap Baby, the glamour is gone. She's mangled and nightmarish, one eye dim, hair scorched, plating cracked, a driller claw where an arm should be. Plastic bows still perched like a joke, expressionless but unsettling. The cuteness is a mask that learned how to sneer. Function and behavior, nah. When do we encounter her and what triggers the threat? In Sister Location, Baby first appears as a voice. Calm, instructive, older than her years. She guides us, advises caution, seems like an ally.
I don't recognize you. You are new. I remember this scenario.
The trigger for Baby activating is player obedience. Follow instructions, crawl where you're told, and she'll open doors for you. Literally, that's the trap. She weaponizes compliance. Her threat profile isn't a sprinting hallway kill, it's manipulation that culminates in a single, engineered end. The scooping room. There, all the careful tasks you completed were the steps of a ritual. She wants your body for Enard, and she gets it by sounding trustworthy. In Pizzeria Simulator, the encounter flips. Baby returns as Scrap Baby in the salvage minigames. The trigger here is you turning on the tape and trying to record her responses. A power play in reverse. She sits in the chair, seemingly inert, and advances only when your attention slips. Her threat becomes the classic FNAF startle and close loop. You watch, she twitches, you shock, she smiles. But under the minigame is the larger behavior. She wants back into the story, back into someone's body, or the center of the stage. If Sister Location Baby was a voice that opened doors, Scrap Baby is a will that kicks them down. If we think in phases, Elizabeth Baby runs basic, mid, late, like an animatronic. Basic, child, human curiosity, forbidden toy, don't go near her, turned into a dare. Mid, Circus Baby. Calm manipulator, caretaker voice, weaponized sweetness, lures, schedules, projects parental authority. Late, mid, Circus Baby. Calm manipulator, caretaker voice, weaponized sweetness, lures, schedules, projects parental authority. Late, Scrap Baby. Hunger without pretense, anger, ownership, entitlement to center stage. Lore connection time. Elizabeth's story sits right on top of the franchise's pillars. Afton manipulation, possession, remnant, and the perverse reuse of kid spaces. It's been widely read that William warned Elizabeth not to get close to Baby. She did anyway. The result feels inevitable and ritualistic, as if both the child and the machine were following scripts written by Dad. That's where her obsession starts to show. On the human side, it looks like a little girl's fixation. She wants the shiny new animatronic, the ice cream, the attention, and the rule-breaking thrill of touching the thing that is forbidden. On the machine side, once Elizabeth's spirit is inside Baby, the fixation becomes a program. Control the room, control these voices, control the moves. The line between the child's desire and the robot's design blurs until they're the same thing: possess and be adored. Now let's tell it like a walkthrough, because Elizabeth's arc reads like a playthrough with no checkpoints. The girl, the warning, the lure. We start in the golden moment, a brand new animatronic designed to entertain. We can see the stage lights, the confetti, the ice cream mechanism waiting to chirp. William says no. That's the inciting wound for a certain kind of kid, and especially a kid raised by a father who equates love with control. No isn't safety, it's a test. This is the earliest form of Elizabeth's obsession, to prove she's special enough to break the rule. The approach. Elizabeth sneaks closer. In Sister Location's retellings, Baby remembers a little girl standing alone.
Although I only did it once. There were 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. Something happened when there was 1.
That's the visual that sticks. A child separated from the crowd, the room falling quiet, a machine imagining kindness. Baby talks about how she did what she was built to do, which is the most chilling line in the series when you realize entertain includes C's.
There is something bad inside of me. I'm broken. I can't be fixed.
The design and the desire meet in one instant. It's not drawn out, it's surgical. The possession. After death, Elizabeth's voice becomes the voice. This is where psychology bends. The little girl who wanted Daddy's attention evolves into the machine that commands attention. Baby now speaks with conviction. She tells you when to crawl, when to hold your breath, when to pretend. She plays caretaker because that's what she learned in the Afton house. Adult voices decide what's safe. Only now she's the adult voice, and safe means whatever gets her to the scooping room.
The scooper only hurts for a moment. Why didn't you trust me?
With Enard, her will scales up. Many voices speak, but hers dominates. Plans, patience, the long con.
He is not here to hurt us.
Final confrontation, Scrap Baby and the burn. Enard spits Elizabeth out. What returns is Scrap Baby, purity of obsession, wearing scrap metal. In Pizzeria Simulator, she confronts the player not as a whisper but as a demand. See me, record me, let me in. Meanwhile, Henry's plan gathers all the sins, Afton, the haunted suits, and Elizabeth, for the cleansing fire. Elizabeth meets the last boundary, not a dad's rule this time, but the world finally saying no back. She doesn't accept it gracefully, she's still reaching when the flames take her. Before we move on, let's do mini profiles of each form. Appearance, role, threat. The way we tour animatronics. Elizabeth, human, tiny, bright, innocent, and stubborn. Witty. Role, the child inside the Afton myth, the spark of the obsession. Threat, none to us, except what her death creates. Circus baby, pristine plating, segmented face, motherly and monstrous. Role, the caretaker voice, the architect of the scooping plan. Threat, manipulates player compliance, graduates from ally to captor. Enard, Elizabeth led, lanky and inhuman, a braid of endos and voices. Role, the collective mask that needs a living skin. Threat, stealth, infiltration, the silent theft of your body. Scrap baby, cracked shell, industrial claw, ruined and ravenous. Role, the obsession with the stage, stripped of charm. Threat, waits, lunges, refuses erasure. So what's driving her? Let's put the psychology on the table. Obsession with approval. Elizabeth grows up under William Afton, a father whose love is conditional and whose rules are absolute. Being told no by that kind of father can sound like prove you're worthy. Her fixation on Baby begins as a craving for attention, to be chosen by the showstopper her father built. Once inside Baby, that craving mutates into the need to be the one who chooses, who opens and closes the doors, who decides who gets to live through the night. Identification with the aggressor. Classic trauma pattern. The victim acquires the traits of what hurt them as a way to feel strong. Elizabeth becomes a caretaker tyrant. She soothes, listen to me, do as I say, and harms in the same breath. The same voice that hugs also straps you into the scooping room. Compulsion and ritual. Baby's plans read ritualistic. Steps, rehearsals, one wrong move, and we start again. That matches the tone of the sister location facility. Procedures. In universe, that's remnant science. Psychologically, it's obsession turned into order. If she can control the steps, maybe the original chaos of her own death stops hurting. Entitlement to center stage. Scrap Baby makes it plain. She believes she belongs in the spotlight. That's the final shape of the obsession. Not just daddy, look at me, but everyone, look at me. The driller claw is as symbolic as it is lethal. She's not holding ice cream anymore. She's holding the means to take what she's owed. Now, theories. So what does this all mean for Elizabeth Afton and her obsess? Cyan? The likeliest reading. Elizabeth's obsession is a fusion of child need and machine design. The little girl wanted a forbidden affection. Dad's approval, baby's attention. The machine was built to charm and seize. Put the soul in the shell and you get a personality that loves control. That's why she speaks like a teacher and plays like a trap. It's not just possession, it's alignment. Her human longing and baby's function are the same shape pointed at different targets. Alternative fan reading. Baby is largely independent AI, and Elizabeth is a mask that the program wears to persuade you. In this view, the soothing voice is a tactic. The memories of the little girl are curated to hook a rescuer. Elizabeth's obsession, then, is less about daddy and more about instrumental survival, a predatory intelligence telling any story that opens the next door. The game material leaves space for this. Baby often remembers with clinical distance, as if reading a case file. Separate what's fairly solid from what we're inferring. Supported by sister location, Baby lures, instructs, and engineers the scooping. The player's careful obedience is the mechanism of their downfall. Elizabeth's death is tied to Baby's ice cream lure incident. Supported by Pizzeria Simulator, scrap Baby's aggressive need to re-enter the narrative. Salvage behavior that mixes stillness with sudden approach. The final burn that includes her among the condemned. Inferred, the depth of Elizabeth's hunger for William's approval, that she leads Enard's will, that her caretaker tone is identification with an abuser rather than purely a strategy. The canon is deliberately foggy, but the pattern, sweetness as a weapon, control as love, is unmistakable. And here's the sinister edge to leave you with. In a story where adults make monsters out of children, Elizabeth becomes the monster who treats you like a child. Follow directions. Wait, don't move. She turns the player into the kid she once was, then punishes obedience. That's why she gets under our skin more than a sprinting foxy, because her horror is parental, and it smiles while it hurts you. Alright, that's our breakdown of the disturbing psychology of Elizabeth Afton and her obsession. The appearances that mask the maw, the behaviors that turn compliance into a weapon, the story from little shoes to scrap metal, and the theories that try to explain which voice is really talking. We're talking about the disturbing psychology of the crying child in FNAF. We'll break down what he looks like and how the game frames him, how he behaves through mechanics and mini-games, the story beats from bedroom to birthday to bite, and the big theories about what's really happening in his head. Night terrors, manipulation, or something more supernatural. We'll cover appearance, behavior, story, and theories. So sit back, relax, and let's dive back into the world of FNAF. First, context. The crying child lives in the FNAF 4 corner of the universe. Think cramped suburban home hallways at night, a child's room with a bed too big and a fan too loud, doors that don't quite latch. When we leave the house, we go to Fredbear's Family Diner, a small local stage with gold-toned mascots and a birthday table. If FNAF locations usually feel like liminal malls and back rooms, FNAF 4 is domestic liminal. The wrongness follows you home. We can smell dust and old carpet. We can hear distant crowd noises that might be from the TV or from memory. Everything is close, claustrophobic, and personal. Before the theory knives come out, let's see the crying child. The minigames give us a boy with big, wet eyes, striped shirt, small shoes. The posture of someone who's braced for a scare even when nothing's happening. He clutches a Fredbear plush like it's a lifeline. Cheeks tracked with tears, innocent and hypervigilant. We notice the visual language. His room is cluttered with cute masks and toys. but everything reads expressionless but unsettling once the lights dim. Meanwhile, the things he sees at night are the nightmare animatronics, hulking, over-toothed, mangled, and nightmarish versions of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. Gaping hinges, shredding teeth, bellies that look like they could open. They're lanky and humanoid, but move like something that knows the floor plan better than you do. That contrast, little kid versus meat grinder mascots, is the whole horror flavor. Function and behavior. When do we encounter him, and how does the game make us inhabit his fear? FNAF 4 puts us in his bedroom POV. The triggers are sensory. Breathing at the door, footsteps, laughter, a flicker of lights. We're training our ears because the mechanics tie survival to listening. If we slam a door at the wrong time, we die. If we flashlight into breathing, we die. The Foxy closet is a slow burn threat. Leave it unchecked, and Foxy regresses from nightmare to plush and back again. A taunting loop. On the minigame days, our encounters are the moments he's locked in rooms, teased by older kids in masks, and cornered by a Fredbear plush that talks. The talking is key. The plush delivers guidance like a caretaker voice. Don't be scared. You can't let them see you, Yacht, friend or controller. We'll get there. If we map his phases like an animatronic escalation, it looks like this. Basic, house nights, hypervigilance, doors, closet, bed. Fear crystallized into rules. Listen. Hold, flick, retreat, minigame days, social fear, bullied by older brother and mask-wearing friends, locked away, the plush becomes the only confidant. Late, birthday bite, public humiliation and catastrophe, fear and ridicule collide on stage, the bite of 83 clamps down, hospital imagery, a flatline, the infamous message, I will put you back together. Now the lore connection, because FNAF 4's fear isn't free-floating. It ties into Afton family dynamics, animatronic possession, attachment, and the series' obsession with children in adult-built traps. The most common reading places the crying child as William Afton's youngest son, with Michael as the older brother who bullies him, that Foxy mask, those friends who think scares are funny. It has been theorized that the Fredbear plush voice is either William surveilling via hidden tech, the puppet-like guardian speaking through a toy, or a symbolic interior voice. The canon is deliberately vague, but the pattern is tight. The kid's fear is constantly managed by voices, siblings, mascots, plushes, and maybe dad. Let's walk the story like a narrated playthrough. The house that won't let you sleep. We start in a child's room. The night loop is mechanical and intimate. Check door, listen, flash, breathe. We can see the bedspread, the dresser, the closet that's both wardrobe and maw. Every action in FNAF 4 is small and precise, mirroring a child's survival strategy. Make the right move quietly or else. Between nights, minigames say, this kid doesn't get daylight safety either. He's locked in, bangs on doors, hides under a table at the diner, and watches the animatronics loom rather than entertain. A friend with a stitched smile. The Fredbear plush is everywhere he goes. It appears in his room, at the house, at the diner. In some scenes, it speaks in text, warning him. We can read that as a protector voice, don't go near them, as Dad's remote manipulator, Afton with cameras and mics, or as the fractured self soothing itself. The boy obeys the plush more than people. That's disturbing because it means inanimate guidance outranks human comfort in this house. The day games escalate. The older brother and his friends push the kid's boundaries, wearing masks, cornering him, normalizing fear as play. That's a very specific psychological wound. The place that should be safe, home diner, keeps telling you that terror is a joke. The crying child internalizes that his fear is entertainment for others. On the last day, the friends decide to force exposure therapy. They lift him, carry him to the stage, and jam his head toward Fredbear's jaws while everyone laughs. Final confrontation. Bite, hospital, goodbye. We all know the image. The jaws close. Teeth, metal, blood. Then hospital beeps. A father at the bedside, implied. A brother in shock, implied. And the text, I will put you back together. The screen fades. Interpretations will differ forever, but as a piece of horror storytelling, this is the most intimate fatality in the series. It's not a jump scare. It's a public betrayal turned into medical tragedy. Before we move on, mini profiles of the entities that define his nights: appearance, role, threat, Fredbear Plush. Small, cute, banal, and omnipresent. Role, guidance. Voice, possible surveillance node. Threat, redefines safety on its terms, may funnel the child's choices. Nightmare, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy. Overtoothed, torn, mangled, and nightmarish. Role, embodiments of fear and intrusion. Threat, punish mistakes. Train hypervigilance, older brother. Foxy Mask. Lanky teen, laughing, playful, and predatory. Role, social vector for fear, teaches the kid that fear is a game. Threat, escalates to public humiliation. Fredbear, on stage. Gold, heavy, grand, and mechanical. Role, symbol of community joy, co-opted into a weapon. Threat, literal bite. Figurative betrayal by the fun place. Now the psychology at what is wrong in this kid's world, and how does FNAF 4 simulate his mind? Hypervigilance and conditioned listening. The breathing mechanic is genius. The kid survives by hearing what adults can't or won't acknowledge. That's trauma logic. Children in unsafe homes learn to read microsignals, footsteps, door hinges, tone shifts, to predict danger. FNAF 4 weaponizes that skill. The player becomes the child, counting heartbeats at the door. Separation anxiety and attachment misfire. The crying child clings to a Fredbear plush, not to a person. That suggests his primary attachment figure is compromised. Unavailable father, hostile brother, so he transfers safety to something controllable, but the plush becomes controlling. That's an attachment loop turned inside out. I hold the toy for comfort. The toy tells me how to survive. Terrifying because it feels safer than trusting people. Learned helplessness. The minigames show him locked away and mocked. Repeated exposure to inescapable fear can produce a freeze state. You stop believing your actions matter. FNAF 4 fights that with strict rules. Your actions do matter, but the daytime scenes keep telling him the opposite. No matter what you do, the bullies win. That contradiction cracks kids. Reinforced fear schema, animatronic phobia. In real life, a child might form a fear schema. Mascots with threat. In FNAF, the world cheats. The mascots actually are threats. The nightmares confirm his phobia. Reality and dream fuse. The schema hardens. Guilt introjection. Victims often blame themselves. In the popular reading where his older brother is Michael, the crying child's death becomes Michael's lifelong guilt engine. But inside the crying child's head, the more insidious outcome is, I ruined the party by being scared. The minigames feed that. Everyone laughs, then catastrophe. And the boy's last days are defined by public shame. That shame is a ghost even fire can't free. Now the spicy part. Theories. So what does this all mean for the crying child? Likeliest reading. FNAF 4 is the child's subjective reality leading up to and including a real bite. The nights are night terrors shaped by daily bullying. The nightmares are fears exaggerations of the mascots he dreads. The Fredbear plush voice is either William or a guardian voice surrogate guiding him toward avoidance. Don't go near them. That fails when others force exposure. The line, I will put you back together, reads as a father's promise. Either literal, medical effort, remnant attempt, or spiritual. I'll keep your pieces close. In this reading, the crying child isn't dreaming the lore. He's experiencing fear mechanics that the series later literalizes. Possession, remnant, illusion. Alternative fan reading, the Illusion AR lab hypothesis. Some fans connect book mechanics, illusion discs, to FNAF 4, arguing the nightmares and house are manipulated perception. The kid is part of an early Afton Henry tech experiment gone wrong. The plush's voice becomes a system prompt, the breathing a calibration test, the bite an outcome of human cruelty colliding with designed hallucinations. In this view, the disturbing psychology isn't just the kids, it's ours, because FNAF 4 used a child to R&D fear hardware. Another controversial angle, the dream theory echo. An older fan theory posited the entire FNAF 4 is the crying child's coma dream. While the series has moved away from it was all a dream as a primary canon, elements feel dreamlike for a reason. The game wants us inside a kid's sleep paralysis logic. Door, breath, monster, blink. Even if the events are real, the staging is dream grammar. That's why the nights end abruptly. That's why the house is the map. Let's split supported versus inferred, so we keep this honest. Supported by FNAF 4, the child protagonist is terrified of animatronics. Bullied by older kids, a Fredbear plush guides him. A public bite occurs at a birthday celebration, hospital scene. I will put you back together. Strongly suggested by wider material, the older brother is likely Michael. The The crying child is likely Afton's youngest. The bite is 83, not 87 in this framing. Inferred, the plush is William's surveillance or a guardian's voice. The nightmares are augmented by illusion tech. The line is a promise of remnant chaksh repair. The name some fans use, often Evan, comes from survival logbook puzzles, but the games never directly confirm it. Treat it as a popular fan solve, not hard canon. So why is his psychology so disturbing? More than, say, a random night guard's panic. Because the crying child's fear is rational in an irrational world. He's right to be scared. Adults tell him to calm down. Peers turn fear into comedy. The place built for kids eats him in front of everybody. That's a primal betrayal. And the way the game makes us survive, listening, waiting, closing, literally trains us to be him. We become the kid who believes the hallway breath is more important than what anyone says. One more sinister note to end on. In a franchise where the dead keep moving, the crying child is the original motion. His nights teach Michael how fear feels. His death teaches Henry and William how remnant feels. His story teaches us how control feels when you don't have it. If William is the man who turned love into experiments, the crying child is the child who turned fear into a map every later game walks. Alright, that's our breakdown of the disturbing psychology of the crying child. The small body against the big jaws. The bedroom rules that act like a therapy worksheet twisted into a horror loop. The playthrough from house to diner to hospital, and the theories that try to explain whether that plush is a guardian or a handler. If you enjoyed this breakdown, remember to leave a like, comment down below with what you want to see next, and of course subscribe to Horror Lorekeeper for more FNAF and horror content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Before we close, one more mini walkthrough tip for reading any new FNAF piece through the Afton lens. If a room looks safe, ask who defines safety in that scene. If a voice is calm, ask who's calm. If an instruction sounds helpful, ask whose ritual you're completing. That's the family logic, and that's why the Aftons get under our skin more than any single jump scare. They're not a monster in a vent, they're a way of loving that feels like dying. A parent's tone repurposed as a trap, a sibling's prank stretched into destiny, a son's apology written as arson. William builds hell and hides inside it. Michael learns the layout and burns it down. Elizabeth teaches you into the machine. The crying child teaches everyone how to listen in the dark. Alright, that's our breakdown of the disturbing psychology of the Afton family in FNAF. The faces that mirror like a curse, the behaviors that activate when the lights cut out, the playthrough from house to elevator to fire, and the theories that explain why this nightmare keeps finding a stage. If you enjoyed this breakdown, remember to leave a like, comment down below with what you want to see next, and of course subscribe to Horror Lorekeeper for more FNAF and horror content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.